At my son's high school graduation, my parents made a shocking announcement. They were taking control of his college fund and giving it to my nephew instead. My husband, Mark, laughed and said, "That's interesting, because we moved it last month." The look on my parents' faces when they realized was unforgettable. I still remember the moment everything fell apart. We were at a nice steakhouse for my son Ethan's high school graduation dinner, a place we had been saving up for to celebrate the occasion, because despite everything, I still wanted my parents there for this significant event. Ethan had worked so hard, pushing through AP classes, extracurriculars, and part-time work, and he had been accepted into his dream college. This dinner was supposed to be a time of joy and pride, but my parents have other ideas. Just as the waiter set down our drinks, my mom picked up her glass, smiled, and tapped it with her fork. She stood up, cleared her throat, and with a smug grin said, "We have an announcement. We've decided that Ethan's college fund will be going to his cousin Jason instead. He needs it more." A stunned silence followed. I froze in place. Mark, my husband, tightened his grip on his fork. Ethan's face went pale. My younger daughter, sitting beside him, looked between us, confused. My dad nodded along, as though it made perfect sense, and added, "It's what's best for the family. Jason's had a tough time, and this will really help him get his life back on track." Jason, my nephew, my brother's son, the child my parents had always favored over my own, the one they repeatedly bailed out of trouble. I could feel my face burning with anger, years of swallowing my frustration, of letting my parents dismiss and undermine my children, of being treated like an afterthought compared to my brother. It all came to a boiling point. But Mark was quicker to act. He leaned back in his chair, took a sip of his beer, and chuckled, a low, amused sound. Then he said, "That's funny, because we moved it last month." My mother blinked, and my dad's smile faltered. "What?" my mom demanded, now sounding defensive. Mark smirked. "Yeah, we saw this coming. We moved Ethan's college fund out of their reach weeks ago. And then all hell broke loose." My mom's face turned bright red, and she practically shrieked, "You had no right." My father slammed his hand down on the table, rattling the silverware. "You can't do that. That money was meant for family." That was when I finally found my voice. "Ethan, his family," I shot back, "and that fund was his. You had no say in it." "You're being selfish," my mom spat. "Jason needs this. You know how hard things have been for your brother. We are trying to fix things for him, and you're ruining it." That was the moment everything hit me. They never planned for that money to be for Ethan. They'd been waiting for the perfect moment to swoop in and take it. I glanced at Ethan. His face was full of devastation. He'd grown up knowing his grandparents didn't favor him, but this was proof that in their eyes he wasn't even worth a second thought. And that broke something inside me. "Fixing things?" I repeated, my voice trembling. "You mean the way you fixed things when Jason stole from us? Or when he got arrested and you paid off his charges? Or when he wrecked my brother's car and you bought him a new one?" My dad growled, "That's not the same thing. Jason's been struggling. Your brother is a single father doing his best. And I'm a mother doing my best," I interrupted. "And you just told my son, on the most important day of his life, that his future doesn't matter. That you're taking away his chance at the future he worked so hard for." My mom scoffed. "Oh, please, Ethan can take out loans like everyone else." That was the moment I knew it was over. Ethan stood up so fast that his chair scraped the floor. "You know what?" he said, his voice shaking but strong. "I don't need anything from you. I don't need your money, and I sure as hell don't need you in my life." Mark stood as well, putting a steady hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Let him go," he said calmly. "We don't owe them another second of our time." I stood up too. "This was your last chance," I told my parents. "You've shown us who you are, time and time again. But today you made sure we'll never forget it." And with that, we walked out. They screamed after us, calling us ungrateful, accusing us of tearing the family apart. But as I looked at my son, his head held high despite the hurt in his eyes, I knew we'd done the right thing. What I didn't know was how far my parents would go to try to get that money back. We left that restaurant knowing nothing would ever be the same. But I had no idea just how far they would go to get back at us. At first, it was just phone calls. Angry voicemails from my mom, screaming about how we'd betrayed the family. My dad left a few too, harsh, threatening messages, saying things like, You'll regret this." Then my brother, who had stayed out of the argument that night, finally sent a text 2 days later. "I don't know what's going on, but Jason needs that money more than Ethan does. You're being selfish." That was it. No questions, no attempt to understand. Just, "You're being selfish." I didn't respond. Then the real trouble started. The bank call. A week after the dinner, Mark got a call from our bank. I was in the kitchen when I overheard him say, "Excuse me, what withdrawal?" I froze. My stomach sank. The call lasted another minute or two, and when Mark hung up, his face was tight with anger. "They tried to access Ethan's fund," he said. I gripped the counter. "Who?" "Your parents," he replied. "They called the bank pretending to be us, saying we'd authorize a family emergency withdrawal." I couldn't breathe. "Did they?" Mark shook his head. "The bank flagged it. They thought something was off and called me first." I wanted to scream. How dare they? The audacity. Without hesitation, I grabbed my phone, found my dad's number, and called. The moment he picked up, I let him have it. "You actually tried to steal from us?" I demanded, my voice trembling. "What is wrong with you?" My dad didn't sound even remotely guilty. "You left us no choice," he said. "We wouldn't have had to do that if you weren't being so unreasonable." I nearly threw my phone across the room. "Unreasonable? You tried to commit fraud." "It's our money," my dad snapped. "We contributed to it." That stopped me in my tracks. "What?" My mom cut in. "You think you did all of this on your own? You think we never put anything in that fund?" My hands clenched into fists. "You never gave a single cent to Ethan's fund," I spat. "You're remembering wrong," my dad said smoothly. "And if we went to court, I guarantee they'd say we have a right to it." My blood ran cold. Mark must have seen my expression because he stepped closer. "They wouldn't," he said calmly. "They don't have a leg to stand on." But I wasn't entirely convinced. After all, my parents were masters of deceit, blatant, manipulative deceit. If they were willing to go this far, what else could they be planning? The legal threat came just 3 days later, and it gave us our answer. I had just pulled into our driveway when I spotted a large envelope on the doorstep. As soon as I picked it up and saw the return address, a wave of nausea hit me. It was from a lawyer. I rushed inside, my hands trembling as I tore the envelope open. Mark was sitting in the living room. "What's that?" he asked. I skimmed the first page, then the second, but by the third, my hands were shaking too violently to keep the paper steady. "They're suing us," I muttered. Mark's head shot up. "What?" he asked, eyes wide. "They're claiming they co-funded Ethan's college savings and that we transferred the money illegally without their permission." My voice rose in pitch. "They're saying they have a right to part of the fund." Mark jumped to his feet, the chair scraping against the floor. He snatched the papers from me, his eyes narrowing as he read through them. "This is complete expletive," he muttered. But even as he said that, doubt crept in. My parents were skilled at twisting the truth, manipulating reality to paint themselves as victims. And what terrified me most was the thought that, in a legal battle, they might actually win. The evidence over the following days, we scrambled to gather every scrap of evidence we had. Bank statements, transfer records, every single deposit made into that account. Then my parents dropped their bombshell. At the next lawyer meeting, they produced a receipt from over 10 years ago, a loan deposit of $2,000 into the fund when Ethan was still a baby. They sat there, smug as ever, as their lawyer argued that since they had contributed to the fund, they had a right to challenge where the money went. $2,000? I scoffed, nearly laughing. "You think that gives you the right to control the entire fund?" My mom smiled sweetly. "It was a contribution. Without it, you wouldn't have been able to save as much as you did." My blood boiled. Mark, thankfully, stayed calm. "So let me get this straight," he said. "You think that because you gave a one-time gift over a decade ago, you now get to dictate where the money goes?" My dad nodded. "Exactly." I wanted to scream. The first step back, it took weeks, but the court eventually ruled that while my parents had no claim over the fund, they were entitled to receive their $2,000 back with interest. It wasn't much of a win. At least they couldn't touch the fund. But it still felt like a defeat. The message was clear. My parents were willing to go to any lengths to punish us for standing up to them. And they were far from done. The next assault, less than 2 weeks after the court ruling, Mark came home with a ghostly expression. "They've reported us," he said. I froze. "What?" "To the IRS. They're accusing us of tax fraud." I could barely breathe. "What?" "They told the IRS that we've been hiding money and misreporting funds for years." I grabbed the edge of the counter to steady myself. "This is insane." Mark nodded grimly. "Yeah, and now we're under investigation." The breaking point in that moment, I knew this wasn't about money anymore. It was a full-on war. My parents weren't just trying to take what was ours. They were trying to destroy us. I thought the lawsuit was the worst of it. I thought losing a portion of Ethan's college fund to my greedy, self-righteous parents was as bad as it could get. I was wrong. Because when the IRS showed up at our doorstep, that's when I realized they weren't just after our money. They were out to ruin us. The IRS investigation, it all started with a letter, a cold formal notice saying that our finances were under review because of a report alleging tax discrepancies. Mark was the first to read it. He exhaled sharply and handed it to me wordlessly. I scanned it, my hands shaking. "This can't be real," I whispered. "Oh, it's real," Mark muttered. Then came the phone call. A polite but firm IRS agent informing us that an anonymous tip had flagged us for hidden assets and fraudulent fund transfers. We knew exactly who was behind it, but proving it was another story. For the next few weeks, we were buried in paperwork, tax records, bank statements, and anything else that could clear our name. We were lucky our finances were clean, but that didn't make the investigation any easier. The worst part, it affected Ethan's financial aid. His college flagged his account due to the IRS review, placing a temporary hold on his scholarship payments. My parents weren't just trying to steal from his college fund. They were trying to take his future. That was the breaking point for me. If they wanted a fight, I was about to bring them a war. The first retaliation, I started digging. I knew my parents had skeletons in their closet. Growing up, I'd watched them twist the truth, manipulate people, and get away with whatever they wanted. If they wanted to play dirty, I could do it too. It didn't take long to uncover something interesting. My parents always acted like they were financially responsible, like they were the family's rock. But what they didn't know was that years ago, Mark had helped them set up a rental property investment. He'd handled all the paperwork, all the tax filings, everything. And guess what? They had been underreporting their rental income for years. They thought they were untouchable, but they had been sloppy. Retaliation, I made a call. I didn't report them to the authorities, at least not yet. First, I let them know I knew what they'd done. I called my mother. She picked up on the second ring, her voice dripping with smugness. "Oh, so you're finally ready to apologize." I almost laughed. "No, I'm calling to let you know that I found the real tax fraud in this family." There was silence on the other end, then a scoff. "What are you talking about?" "Your rental income. You know, the money you forgot to report for the last 15 years. Her breath hitched. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I do," I said, my voice ice cold. "And so does the IRS. Or they will, unless you drop this expletive and call off your attack." I heard her breath catch, then the deflection. "You wouldn't." I smiled. "Try me." She hung up without saying another word. The outcome: 2 days later, we got a call from the IRS. Our case was suddenly no longer a priority. A week later, Ethan's college funds were unfrozen. They had backed off for now. But I knew them. I knew they wouldn't let it go like this. And I was right. The home invasion, it happened late one night. Mark and I were asleep when the sound of glass breaking startled us awake. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. Then I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps inside the house. Mark was already moving. He grabbed the baseball bat he kept next to the bed and motioned for me to call 911. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. Then, through the house, I heard a voice. "Mom? Dad? Ethan?" Panic surged through me as I realized he was awake. The sound had woken him up, and instead of staying in his room, he was coming downstairs. "Stay in your room," Mark yelled. But it was too late. We stepped into the hallway just as Ethan reached the stairs, and that's when we saw him. Jason, standing in our living room, drunk, his eyes frantic and wild, clutching a crowbar. The standoff lasted only a moment. No one moved. Then Jason took an unsteady step forward. "Where is it?" he slurred. Mark gripped the bat tighter. "Where's what?" "The money," Jason screamed, his voice cracking. "I deserve it. They promised it to me. It clicked. My parents had sent him. They knew they couldn't get the money legally, so they sent their grandson to do their bidding. They knew they'd lost, so they used Jason to try and take what they couldn't. Jason staggered toward us, lifting the crowbar a little. "You think you can just take what's mine?" he mumbled. Ethan stepped forward, his fists clenched. "It was never yours," he said, his voice firm despite the fear in his eyes. "And you need to leave." Jason laughed, a twisted, bitter sound. "Oh yeah? What are you going to do about it?" That's when Mark swung the bat. He didn't hit Jason, but the bat slammed into the wall beside him, the noise shaking him out of his drunken fog. He staggered back, his eyes wide in shock. Then, without another word, he turned and bolted out the front door. The police showed up 10 minutes later. Jason was arrested for attempted burglary. My parents bailed him out before dawn. Then my mother had the nerve to call me. "You've gone too far," she hissed. "You had him arrested." I almost laughed. "He broke into our house with a weapon. That's on you." She was silent for a moment, then whispered, "You'll regret this." For the first time, I believed her because I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. 2 weeks later, my brother called. He wanted to meet. "It's gone too far," he said, his voice tired. "Mom and Dad are a wreck. Jason's a mess. We need to talk." I nearly laughed. Now he wanted to talk. After standing by while our parents tried to steal from my son. After letting them use Jason as a pawn. But Mark convinced me. "Maybe this is our chance to end it," he said. "To get some real answers." So, against my better judgment, we agreed. The family meeting was set for that Sunday at my parents' house. Walking in felt like stepping into a war zone. Mark and I arrived first, with Ethan refusing to come. "I'm done with them," he said simply, and I didn't blame him. My parents sat stiffly on the couch, their faces cold. My mom's expression was tight, drawn. My dad wouldn't even look at us. Then my brother walked in with Jason. I tensed immediately. Jason looked awful, pale, gaunt, dark circles under his eyes. His usual arrogance had been replaced with something more fragile. My mom motioned for us to sit, but I stayed standing. "Let's get this over with," I said. My brother sighed. "Look, we all screwed up." "Screwed up?" Mark scoffed. "I didn't mean it like that," my brother quickly corrected. "I mean, this isn't what Mom and Dad wanted." I laughed bitterly. They wanted to steal from my son. They used Jason to break into our house. So please tell me, what exactly didn't they want? That's when Jason spoke. His voice was hoarse. I didn't mean to hurt anyone," he murmured. I thought it was mine." His words made my stomach twist. "You thought it was yours?" I asked, incredulous. He swallowed hard and glanced at my mom. And that's when I saw it, the guilt. My mother couldn't meet my eyes. Mark saw it too and leaned forward, his voice dangerously calm. "Tell us, Jason, why did you think it was yours?" Jason hesitated, looking nervously at my mom. That's when it hit me. "Oh my God," I whispered. "You told him, didn't you?" My mother flinched. I turned to Jason, my heart pounding. "They told you it was already yours, didn't they?" I asked. "That Ethan's fund wasn't just being given to you, but that it was yours all along." Jason's eyes darted nervously. Before he could answer, my mom spoke. "We had to," she snapped. "He was struggling. Your brother was struggling. We had to give him hope." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So you lied to him? You told him that his whole future was secured by money that was never his?" My dad finally spoke, his tone sharp. "What does it matter? You and Mark had good jobs, a house, a stable life. Jason had nothing. What kind of sister are you to sit by while your own nephew suffered?" That was it. Something inside me snapped. I took a step forward, my hands shaking with anger. "What kind of parents are you?" I hissed. "You have 2 children, but you've spent your entire lives treating me like I'm second rate while he," I pointed at my brother, "gets everything handed to him. And now you want me to give away my son's future because of your guilt?"